This week, we welcome John McCumber, the Director of Cybersecurity Advocacy at ISC Squared, to talk about the statistics behind the cybersecurity workforce gap. In our second segment, we air a pre-recorded interview with Andrew Hollister. He's the Chief Architect and Product Manager at LogRhythm, discussing how to measure the effectiveness of your SOC. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals.
Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. The question is simple. Have any of the systems on my network been compromised? The answer is harder than it should be. Enter AI Hunter. Active Countermeasures has automated and streamlined techniques used by the best pen testers and threat hunters in the industry to create AI Hunter, a network threat hunting solution that does the first pass of a hunt for you to identify systems that are most likely to be compromised and scores the results on a scale from 0 to 100. You can then research those systems in depth with AI Hunter. Focus your valuable time on the systems that need your expertise with AI Hunter. Sign up for a personal demo today at securityweekly.com/ACM. How do you stay ahead of attackers while trying to maintain the strength of your current security posture? At TrustedSec, they believe research goes hand in hand with security consulting. In addition to their established security offerings, they continually advance their own expertise with a dedicated, experienced research team led by Carlos Perez that works on short and long-term projects to assist their consultants during engagements, developing proprietary attack vectors and investigating new threats. Go to trustedsec.com/securityweekly to learn more about the pioneering research team at TrustedSec. Security can't solve crucial problems when they have to wade through thousands of alerts a day. With ServiceNow, you can easily prioritize and respond to your most crucial business threats. That way you can go from overwhelmed to under control. ServiceNow brings security, risk, and IT together on one platform. Learn more at securityweekly.com/ServiceNow. Well, welcome to Business Security Weekly, episode 130, recorded June 3rd, 2019. I'm your host, Paul Asadorian, joined in studio by my illustrious co-host for this show now, Mr. Jason Albuquerque. Jason,
Hey,
welcome.
Paul, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
I hope everybody that's listening had a wonderful weekend. I know I had a wonderful weekend out in the sun.
I was grinding a lot of stumps.
Yeah, I was out there taking care of the yard.
Now, see, my nephews and stuff are younger, they're like 15, right? So when I use the joke of there ain't nothing wrong with a little stump and grind, they didn't get it, dude. See, I knew you would get it.
Come on now. Come on. Did you bring up the song afterwards?
Oh, I did. I was like, the song. I was like, what are you talking? They were like, is that Kendrick Lamar? No, you know what?
It's not. Like I said earlier, it sucks to get old.
It does. Yes, it does. Nobody gets your jokes anymore. Maybe they just weren't funny to begin with, but I thought that was pretty fun. Anyway, Security Weekly is returning to Las Vegas for Black Hat and DEF CON. If you would like to request even a briefing or sponsor interview on site at Black Hat, you can go to securityweekly.com/booking and submit your request. We've rented a suite in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. We have mostly paid interviews is what we'll be doing there.
Awesome.
Very, very limited number of free briefings, if any. Most of them are paid interviews that will air on Enterprise Security Weekly and during the show, during Black Hat on our YouTube channel. And we're recording Paul Security Weekly and Enterprise Security Weekly on site. There's a few sponsor slots remaining. They're going fast.
Yeah,
they're almost all done.
I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.
That's right. You're going to be there, right?
I'm going to be there, buddy.
Sweet. You're going to be sweet and sweet.
Sweet.
Some of you have told us that you're overwhelmed by the amount of content that we distribute. In an effort to make life a little easier for you, you can go to securityweekly.com/subscribe. Subscribe to our mailing list. That page also allows you to subscribe to all of our shows. And we will send you eventually information about shows that are published within your interests. I am very excited to have John McCumber with us. He is a retired U.S. Air Force officer, a former cryptologic fellow at the National Security Agency, and is currently now the director of cybersecurity advocacy.
Ooh.
I had to rewind a couple of times.
I have the same problem.
Right? That's a hard word, right?
It's horrible.
It's my first show of the week.
Thought leader or evangelist.
This is true.
That was my only condition.
Well, John, it's nice to have you here. I'm very excited because we talk so much about the air quotes cybersecurity skills gap, and I think a lot of people say a lot of things, but John actually has a bunch of data to back that up.
And some of the incredible,
right? And some of the things I've been hearing is, well, there's 1 to 2 million, like estimates between 1 million and 2 million. I'm like, 1 million job openings is a pretty big range to have. I'm like, so we're really happy, John, that you're here to talk about this topic with us because you've done a lot of research into it in your role at ISC Squared. Is that correct?
That is correct, Paul. It's a real privilege to be able to support this profession at this stage of my career and be able to support the men and women and do a really difficult job. So one of the things that we do every year, we refresh this and we consistently update the data, is do our workforce survey. And that number that we're talking about is actually, you said 1 or 2 million, it's 2.93.
Ooh,
and that's based on a statistically significant survey that we did, and that does not include just cybersecurity professionals. It includes HR, human resources personnel. It includes company leaders that are hiring for this field, and it brings in and not just members of ISC Squared either. So we reached outside the community in the broad workforce as a whole to determine what these numbers look like, and it is a big number. The problem isn't that we have this big number. The problem, I get calls from my colleagues every day. They go, John, I said, why, I got a friend here, Sally, and she's having a rough time getting in the field, and she's, passing exams. She's a Security Plus. She wants to get in the field. She's having trouble getting interviews, or we're having trouble with maybe someone experienced who's having looking for another job, and he goes, where's this 3 million jobs?
Yeah,
and so that is a concern.
It is. And I think a lot of it is the circumstances. For example, we hire here at Security Weekly. Now, in Rhode Island, we've got a lot of schools, a lot of students graduating. Yeah. I feel like many of them leave the state once they've graduated, right?
Absolutely.
Also, which is, that's not really under my direct control. I could certainly, Jason and I, of course, work very hard to improve things here in Rhode Island to get
try
people
to influence
stay.
the culture here, right?
Absolutely.
At the end of the day,
Jason and I, and even collectively in the groups, we can only have so much influence over that.
Right.
So people leave, but now we're a smaller company, and enabling people to work remotely. Not every position, we're just not grown up enough to have that many positions where people can work remotely. So, John, I'm sure those are some of the circumstances that you've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. And let me just tell you before I jump into some of these numbers that you guys in Rhode Island, though, have some really good advantages. One is your Congressman, Jim Langevin.
Oh, yeah, he's awesome. Yep.
Oh, yeah, he is awesome. And he's on the cybersecurity caucus. I work closely a lot of times and actually brought him in as a speaker. His staff legislative aide, a gentleman by the name of Nick Leiserson. I get a weekly update from Nick on what we're doing in Congress and around the nation in cybersecurity. And the other thing that I know about Rhode Island, it is in answer to a trivia question, which is what state is the longest name?
That's right.
And so you say Rhode Island and the Providence Plantations.
Absolutely.
The official name of the state.
Smallest state, longest name.
Longest name, absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned the good congressman, because he, back in the day, I think 15 years ago, he co-founded that caucus.
Yeah.
Talk about insight into the future, right?
Yeah.
And I luckily have the privilege to sit on his advisory committee here in Rhode Island. So he has a cybersecurity advisory committee. We meet quarterly. And we talk about what's happening in D.C. and how we can help him influence when he goes back to D.C. So
he is very involved with
extremely involved.
We had a conference last year, the year before, all of the Cyber Patriot students in the Rhode Island and surrounding areas that we could get to come and hang out on Saturday. And he just had this roundtable. I don't know if you were there for that one, but he had a roundtable discussion and was hearing everyone's concerns and how we make things better. So
and certainly. He's constantly bringing in folks who can. Number one, help us as security leaders here in Rhode Island for our businesses, but also to give that feedback back upstream, right? So it's a two-way street, which makes it great, right? It's not things being dictated down to us. It's conversational, and we're passing information back and forth. And I can't expect anything better from a leader in DC.
John, in terms of influencing the youth, I'm sure you've looked into this aspect of what children and kids in the U.S. are taught in school, and is there not enough folks graduating with the right skills to come into cybersecurity in the U.S.? Is that one of the angles you've explored?
Well, certainly. One of the things that we find repeatedly is that we've done a poor job of defining what is this career field. Because one of the issues that we talk about in these numbers, I'll break it down for you. That 2.93 is a global number. In the U.S., that's 498,000 positions between now and the end of 2020 that we've identified as currently not projected to be filled. And so when you take that number, not the 2.93, but the 498,000 divided among the dozens of career fields that are in cybersecurity. If you want to know what they are, take a look at the NICE cybersecurity framework. NICE is the NIST's National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. I'm privileged to be the co-chair of the Training and Certification Subcommittee. And one of the things that we have done there is to decompose this career field, talk about what knowledge, skills, and abilities are available, and which ones that men and women are bringing into the field. A good friend of mine, Dr. Sam Lyles, formerly of National Defense University, said to me many years ago, he said, John, the problem we have in cybersecurity and in IT in general is if we called this a white-collar job 50 years ago, and it really wasn't. And it created this big mess in higher education, in hiring and others, and that's in IT in general. And we've been able to sort through a lot of that as time goes on, and now it's just catching up to us in what we call cybersecurity. We have jobs that require people to have strong foundational knowledge that might come from a bachelor's degree. We have dozens of jobs where people don't need that foundational education. They need skills. And so we've gone from being white collar or blue collar, we're calling it now as new collar generation.
Oh, that's awesome. I couldn't agree more, right? I mean, there's so many aspects, especially when you're looking at K through 12, where you could have students focusing on that as a vocation. Right? Things like the Cisco Academy that you can take from 9th grade to 12th grade, and you graduate with a CCNA. You already have that entry level role within an IT organization, and you don't have to go get your bachelor's degree, right? Some students just aren't cut out for the college life. And I've said this before on the show that we did a huge disservice a couple decades ago where K through 12 only focused on college preparedness. That's all they focused on. Now we're seeing what could have been a benefit by having vocation in school still, just a more modern type vocation class. Now we're not getting those benefits. Now we actually have what I'll call disenfranchised students out there, right? Where they could have been taking these vocations, but they thought they had to go to college. And now I'm seeing people who have, master's degrees in these domains like theater arts, and they can't get a job, right? Because they thought they had to go to college. I'm going to go for what I enjoy, but now I can't get a career because of it, right? Now, they didn't know their aptitude.
Education aside, John, what about those that are in other fields that want to make the transition into cybersecurity?
Yeah, that's a great lead in. Yeah. One of the things that I work on in advocacy is with ISC Squared, and I've got a great job here because when I was hired, the CEO told me, he said, I'm not looking for a sycophant here. I'm not looking for somebody who's a cheerleader. I'm looking for somebody who's going to challenge us and do that. So what I've been able to, and have spent a long time working on in this new role for ISC Squared is knocking down barriers to entry in cybersecurity. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. You're going to say, wait a minute, you guys are like a 14th century Masons guild, with your CISSP or CCSP certs, which are many of them are what, to use an antiquated term, journeyman certifications. They require experience, they require knowledge, and then we require that for certifying individuals with the ANSI standards. So one of the things that what I've tried to do is to open the doors of our organization. And for example, this year at our DC conference, I brought in 30 students, mostly from the University of Maryland, University College, that just blew us all away with their knowledge, their passion for this, and what they've already accomplished. What we're going to do now, and this is a program that I've decided to expand, I reprogrammed some money. And we have our big conference, our Security Congress 2019, which is taking place in Orlando, Florida this year. And I've thrown the doors open to 250 young people and retraining workers. This isn't just, it's a certain age. This is people that want to get into this career field, whether you're a student a retraining worker, a reacclimating veteran, something that's near and dear to my heart. We have a veterans program. We want to make sure that we help you find your position here and help you find what knowledge, skills, and abilities are required to be able to fill it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say, the veteran side of the house, there has to be a huge amount of folks who could fit that mold into cybersecurity, right? I mean, from intelligence agencies to, so I'm a veteran as well. I served in the Marine Corps, and my MOS was communications, right? I mean, Direct Air Support Center communications, and I transitioned right into IT from there, right? When I got out of the Marine Corps.
What I love about hiring former military, just one thing that I love is the ability to work under pressure and deal with that stress is very well ingrained into most people who are coming from the military. Can't tell. How many times, if you're in security, right, you're doing something with technology. Here's a tip: technology fails, right? At usually the most inopportune times, and that's part of many of our roles, in especially in our careers earlier on, help desk, for example, right? That stuff goes wrong.
Yeah. And resilience is built into the DNA of military. That's one thing that we're great at, is being resilient no matter the situation. So.
Yeah, early in my career, I ran data centers for the Air Force, and to this day, I get twitchy no matter what building I'm in. If the lights flicker, I come flying out of my chair.
Right. Absolutely. So, and we're going to do a webcast with a lot more information on this topic, so I wanted to kind of hit everything at a higher level. So I guess some tips first. If you're applying or want to get into cybersecurity, where do you start? John, you already mentioned a great program that I'm assuming you can find more on the ISC website. And what about for the employers as well, people who are trying to hire into the cybersecurity field?
Yeah, we spend a lot of time working with employers and HR representatives and others to understand, specifically what ISC Squared offers. Everybody's got a war story in this business. I get hate mail on social media quite a bit from somebody who goes, I saw this position description that said they wanted somebody out of college to work as an intern and requires a CISSP. And this thing, and we've all seen those. So we spend a great deal of time working with people, and I do this on my NICE committee as well. We're developing actual position descriptions and helping people understand what are the foundational skills people need to bring with them, as what is they need to develop on the job in order to be successful. And that's where we've seen the biggest challenge, that I see the biggest challenge in our industry, is helping people understand what the job, again, we go see, and I got a collection of unicorn job positions. And in fact, when ISC Squared published my position, I didn't qualify for it. And I told them that. I said, I don't qualify for a bunch of this stuff. They go, well, look you've got all this background. Right. You've done all these different jobs. And you've done, and we think you're qualified. And I said, but you didn't say that. And so one of the things that we want to focus on is getting rid of these unicorn job descriptions, understanding what is the true nature of the work, understanding what are the foundational, and I use that term specifically, knowledge, skills, abilities, because training develops skills. Education develops knowledge, and it's important to know the difference.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're trying to onboard our latest intern. We've nicknamed the Prodigy, right? But I tried to be very generic, and I got more applicants the more kind of generic I was. Like, look, yes, the application's in Python. Sure, if you know how to code in Python, that's great. But you know what? If you know how to program in a language, you should come talk to me, right? If you would like to work in this environment, here's where we're going. Here's where I need you to take me, right? We want to be in containers. We want to be in the cloud. We want to be pushing out releases at a more regular basis, right? So if you want to learn that stuff, or maybe you're starting to learn that stuff, that's cool. And in doing that, one of the ways I found that was our latest intern. Now, speaking of not having any qualifications, right? Our latest intern, he can't drive yet. Okay, doesn't have his driver's license yet. Okay, so, and I didn't even really resume was. I talked with him, and after conversing with him for, maybe 20 minutes or so, I was like, hey, can we hire you? I talked to his dad. I'm like, can we hire? I want to hire him because he's skill set wise, knowledge, understanding, all of that things. I'm like, great fit, right? Outstanding. I don't think we do enough of that. When we hire today is just, and so the other funny part was Matt, our CEO, was telling him well, he's 15. He's like, really? He's like, is it? I'm like, just sit with him. Matt came up, met with him. Right. About 20 minutes in, I poked my head in the interview, and Matt kind of looks at me, and I'm like, so? He's like, this kid really knows his stuff.
Right. Right.
That was it. I was like, see, I told you.
Yeah, I think we're very rigid in the way we hire,
Yeah,
right?
and that's a very relaxed. Obviously, we're a small company, right? This is a family friend as well, so that's a very relaxed, kind of example, right? But I think it speaks to John. My point is, it comes back to what you were saying about all of those things that are in these job requirements really being a barrier for a lot of people to get the right jobs.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're exactly right. One of the things that we run across, and I'll get challenged on this occasionally, and they'll say, "Well, wait a minute, the ISC squared, your certifications are a mile wide and an inch deep." And I go, "You're absolutely right, because we're working in a career field that's a mile wide and a mile deep."
Yep.
We've got, and so the CISSP doesn't show you're an expert firewall configuration manager or run a SIM better than the next person. It simply helps you assess and understand the full complexity of all those 8 domains and what they all entail, and the work that goes into cybersecurity. That's not just your Python coding or just not. There's governance, risk and compliance, identity and access management, awareness. There's so many elements that we want people to be exposed to, and then being able to put a program together. Again, because when you do cybersecurity, and whatever role you have 3 tools you get to work. Or I like to use the term levers, like they're levers in a train. You can pull on the technology lever. You have the policy and practice lever. And then you also have the people or the human factors that you pull on. What makes you good in cybersecurity is not how hard you can yank on one level. One lever or the other. It's what is the right combination of technology, policy, and human factors for a given situation.
It's the balance,
Yeah,
right?
I like to define a role and then interview people and figure out if they have an aptitude to figure it out.
That's it.
Right?
Attitude
and
aptitude.
Too sure you could be the world's foremost expert, and that might be a good fit in whatever technology you're hiring for, right? More important to me is, do you have the aptitude to figure it out, right?
And
that's the way
not
you
a
hire
lot.
too,
That's the way I hire. It's always about attitude and aptitude, right? Because training can come. We can train you on the technologies. We can train you, but if you have the aptitude to learn, guess what? You're on my radar. If you have the attitude to, and for me, it's some of the softer things like basic customer service, right?
Yeah.
Because if I'm putting you in front of one of my colleagues or leaders in this organization, I need you to have that right ability to communicate, right? So that's another side of it as well. But yeah, most organizations don't hire like that. They hire very rigid, the traditional ways. And I think we need to break out of those traditional ways. But much like the way we're educating the students, hiring, we need to break out of those parochial ways as well. Now, John, there are a few statistics in here that really caught my eye when I looked at the report, right? And I think it leads into the conversation we're having. 63% of the respondents said that they have a shortage of IT and cybersecurity staff. But the other piece was that 60% said their companies are at moderate or extreme risk because of it.
Yeah.
Is some of what we're talking about the root cause of this? We're not hiring correctly. We're not educating correctly. I mean, when I see almost 500,000 jobs open in cybersecurity, but at the same time, organizations are saying, "Hey, we have a huge risk here. We need people to work." I'm trying to connect those dots.
No, you're exactly right. There is a gap there, more so than I think in just the job numbers. The gap is between what people are asking for and what people provide. We all want shortcuts in life. So one of the challenges we have at ISC Squared is some people use our certifications as shortcuts. They just said, we need somebody with and again, pick one of the certifications we offer. And so they'll sit there and say that correctly defines the job position, the foundational knowledge they want somebody to bring to the table. And that's not often the case. So one of the things that we struggle and work with all the time, again, getting rid of these unicorn type position descriptions and others that people are looking to fill, and focus on what are those skills that people bring to the table that they can get involved. If you look at those statistics, and another thing I love on there, what's popular out in media today in cybersecurity is that all of us are, self-medicating on alcohol and drugs, cigars, whatever our problem is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Hold on a second.
Absolutely. So, what on our survey, 68% of the people said they love their job. They respect.
I saw that.
And so it's, we have a tendency to jump on facts or figures. Like when you saw the $3 million gap, people always make the assumption that's in the U.S. and that all of a sudden that, they're going to get $600,000, $700,000 a year jobs in the banking industry or something, being a CISO or a security architect. And that may be, I have friends that make pretty good money, but I'm still waiting for my $600K job.
You want to talk about unicorns? That's a unicorn right there.
That's a unicorn. So what we want to, but that's where a lot of media attention goes. Some people take that number and immediately run with conclusions. And that's what we didn't want to do. What does these numbers mean? What do people feel about the job? And so what just to tease where we're going to go with this, if you look at those statistics, you'll find that a majority enjoy the work. You'll find a plurality that think, the world's ending or that they've got some critical issues. Many believe that they're already getting adequate funding for technology. But I think you saw that I did at RSA this year, and I noticed there's a big trend. We've got a lot of great technology. What we haven't figured out is how to manage it correctly.
Right. Yeah.
We haven't figured out how to do the human factors, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. How do we do workforce development? So when you look at this industry, and those are the big problems we have to fix today. Yeah. If you look, people go, well, what do you need a college degree for? This is a great question. What are some of the big issues we're dealing with in cybersecurity right now? How about doxing? How about things like exposing personal data, privileged PII data? We've got all these very important, critical problems. And guess what? They're not going to be a technical cert is going to be able to answer those questions.
I mean, business email compromise in general, right? When you're trying to pretend to be my CEO and you're emailing someone in finance, that's, there's no certification for that, right? We have to be out there evangelizing and training and teaching folks, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, for me, it's all about having a diverse workforce that work in the security space, right? I mean, diversity is massive, and I was glad to see that we're bridging that gender gap, right? But I'm looking forward to getting deeper into the data to see, diversity in general, right? How many other demographics are we able to bring in? Latino community, African American community. I mean, bringing that level of diversity for me is just a massive benefit that we'll have once we can start evangelizing and getting folks into the cybersecurity workforce.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm going to send you, because we actually broke that out specifically. And if you go to my webpage, if you go to ISC Squared, I'm not hard to find. You click on advocates, and then you'll see my research tabs. We've got a study specifically around minority participation.
Oh, awesome.
One of the things, and you know what we want to do is get accurate data. You can't make intelligent, good decisions if you're going on assumptions.
Agreed.
We heard for years that women represent 11 to 13% of employees and people that do work that is 25% cybersecurity or more. And what we found out doing our research is that number is 24%. That's nearly double. That's exciting.
That's awesome.
That shows, I thought so too. And I said, this is good news, because we have to realize I'd love it to be 50 and or 51, whatever that thing is, we're getting there. So we're on a good journey. We just need to keep the fire stoked and need to keep this ship pointed in the right direction.
Agreed.
I guess we should have told our audience about the report at the top of the segment, but I'll take an opportunity now. It is the Hiring and Retaining Top Cybersecurity Talent Report. You can go to securityweekly.com/ISC2. You can get it there. And it's the one that Jason has up on a screen today, and much of our talking points were based on that report. And I think if you're in cybersecurity, want to be in cybersecurity, hiring in cybersecurity, applying for jobs, it's a great read. It's a great read. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, and John, myself, and probably some others are going to be doing a webcast coming up. I think it's July, something like that. But look for a webcast with John. We'll be digging into this in a lot more detail, sharing a lot more background and stories and such about this topic. So
I'll be joining that because I'm definitely interested in the data behind it.
Great.
And I'm definitely go out to your website and download it.
I'm signing you up for the webcast too.
Do it now.
It's less work I have to do. It's good. So John, thank you so much for appearing on Business Security Weekly.
It was great to meet you, John.
Well, Paul and Jason, it's been a real privilege to be with you today, and I look forward to diving into it with all the details and answering everybody's questions.
Fantastic.
Outstanding.
With that, we'll take a short break. Come back with our next interview with Andrew from Logarithm. Stay tuned.